The silence in Mrs. Peterson's fourth-grade classroom shattered when 8-year-old Noah Miller suddenly slumped forward at his desk, his small body crashing to the floor before anyone could catch him. His face had turned an alarming shade of gray just moments before, but in the focused quiet of the math test, no one had noticed the warning signs until it was too late. If you believe in the power of community and want to witness how ordinary people can become heroes in our children's lives, please subscribe to our channel now for more stories that will restore your faith in humanity. Panic erupted as students who were scrambled from their seats while Mrs. Peterson rushed to Noah's side, her training kicking in despite the fear gripping her chest. As she rolled the unresponsive boy onto his side and checked for breathing, she had no way of knowing that this terrifying moment would set in motion a chain of events that would transform not just Noah's life, but the entire school community. That morning had started like any other in the Miller household. The alarm blared at 6:15 a.m., and Jessica Miller dragged herself out of bed after only 5 hours of sleep. She had worked a late shift at the diner the night before, on top of her day job at the local grocery store. As a single mother, these double shifts were often necessary to keep their small 2-bedroom apartment and put food on the table. "Noah, honey, time to get up," she called, knocking gently on her son's door before heading to the kitchen to prepare a quick breakfast. At 8 years old, Noah was remarkably self-sufficient, a necessity born from their circumstances rather than choice. When Noah didn't appear after her second call, Jessica frowned and opened his bedroom door. Her son was still in bed, unusual for him. "I don't feel good, Mom," he mumbled, his normally bright eyes dull and his face paler than usual. "My chest feels funny." Jessica pressed her hand to his forehead. No fever. Relief washed over her immediately, followed by the complicated calculation every working parent faces, especially those without paid sick leave or reliable child care. "Funny how?" she asked, sitting on the edge of his bed. Noah struggled to articulate it. "Kind of tight, and sometimes it goes really fast and then slow." Jessica checked her watch. If Noah stayed home, she would have to call in to both jobs. They were already behind on rent this month after her car needed unexpected repairs. "Did you sleep okay? Any bad dreams?" Noah shook his head slightly. "Not really." "Have you been worried about that math test today?" Jessica asked gently. Noah was an excellent student, particularly in math, but he had always been anxious about tests. A flicker of recognition crossed Noah's face. "Maybe." Jessica made the decision countless parents make daily, one part necessity, one part assessment, that this was probably anxiety rather than illness. "Why don't you get up, have some breakfast, and see how you feel? If you're still not better, I can call the school." 20 minutes later, Noah sat at their small kitchen table, picking at his toast and scrambled eggs. He'd changed into his school clothes, jeans that were slightly too short, and a clean but faded blue t-shirt, but his movements were slower than usual. "Mom, I really don't feel good," he tried again, his voice quiet. Jessica looked up from where she was hurriedly packing his lunch, peanut butter sandwich, an apple, and the last granola bar from the box. The familiar guilt surfaced, the kind that had become her constant companion since her husband had left 3 years ago, leaving her with a 5-year-old and a mountain of debt. "Noah," she said, kneeling beside his chair, "I know you're nervous about the test, but Mrs. Peterson said you're the best math student in your class. You're going to do great." "It's not that," he insisted, but couldn't find the words to explain the strange fluttering in his chest, the occasional lightheadedness he'd been experiencing the past few days. Jessica checked her watch again. If they didn't leave in 5 minutes, she'd be late for her shift. "How about this? Go to school, and if you still feel bad at lunchtime, have the nurse call me. I promise I'll come get you." Noah nodded reluctantly. He understood, even at 8, that money was tight, and that his mom couldn't miss work unless it was serious. And maybe it wasn't serious. Maybe it was just nerves about the test, or because Tommy Jensen had been teasing him again, or because he hadn't slept well. On the drive to Lakeside Elementary, Jessica tried to distract Noah with talk about the weekend. Maybe we can go to the park on Saturday if the weather's nice, or see if there's a free movie at the community center. Noah nodded, trying to match her enthusiastic tone. Could we maybe invite Lucas? Lucas Zhang had been his best friend since kindergarten, one of the few kids who didn't seem to mind Noah's quietness or the fact that he wore the same 3 shirts in rotation. Of course, Jessica agreed, relieved to see a small smile appear on her son's face. As she pulled up to the school drop-off line, she leaned over to give him a quick hug. "Love you, buddy. Have a great day." "Love you too, Mom," Noah replied, shouldering his backpack and joining the stream of students heading into the building. Jessica watched him walk away, that nagging feeling of maternal worry not quite silenced. But the clock on her dashboard reminded her she had exactly 12 minutes to make it across town to the grocery store, so she pushed the concern aside and pulled back into traffic. Noah's morning did not improve as it progressed. During physical education, the fluttering in his chest returned when they played kickball, forcing him to ask to sit out for a few minutes. The PE teacher, Mr. Reynolds, gave him a slightly skeptical look. Noah had never been particularly athletic and often preferred to avoid team sports, but allowed him to rest on the bleachers. "Miller's faking again," he heard Tommy Jensen whisper to another boy. "Scaredy cat?" In science class, the lightheadedness returned while they were standing to observe a demonstration. Noah gripped the edge of his desk, waiting for the spinning sensation to pass. His science teacher, Mrs. Ortiz, noticed and asked if he needed to see the nurse. "I'm okay," Noah assured her, embarrassed by the attention. Last year, his 3rd grade teacher had sent a note home suggesting that Noah sometimes exaggerated minor discomforts for attention. His mother had been upset about the note. But since then, Noah had become determined never to complain unless absolutely necessary. By lunchtime, Noah was feeling marginally better. He sat with Lucas and ate half his sandwich, listening to his friend's excited chatter about the new Marvel movie. He considered calling his mom as she had suggested, but the cafeteria was noisy and busy, and the thought of explaining to the lunch monitor why he needed to go to the office felt overwhelming. Besides, math was right after lunch, and despite not feeling well, he had studied hard for the test. "You sure you're okay?" Lucas asked as they walked back to class. "You look kind of pale." "Just nervous about the test," Noah replied, the excuse becoming his mantra for the day. Mrs. Peterson greeted her students with her characteristic warm smile as they filed into the classroom after lunch. At 42, Emily Peterson had been teaching 4th grade at Lakeside Elementary for 15 years. With her curly brown hair often tied in a practical ponytail and glasses that frequently slipped down her nose, she embodied a mix of warmth and no-nonsense efficiency that made her popular with both students and parents. "All right, everyone," she announced once they were settled. "Clear your desks except for a pencil. I'm about to hand out the math test we've been preparing for all week." As the tests were distributed, Noah tried to focus. The fluttering in his chest had returned, stronger now, and he felt slightly short of breath. He looked down at the first problem. Find the perimeter of a rectangle with length 7 centimeters and width 4 centimeters. He knew this. He had practiced similar problems just last night, but the numbers seemed to swim on the page, and the strange rhythm in his chest was becoming distracting. Noah took a deep breath and tried to concentrate. Around him, the scratching of pencils and occasional eraser rubs created a backdrop of focused silence. The classroom felt unusually warm. Noah loosened the collar of his shirt slightly, feeling sweat beading on his forehead despite the air conditioning. The lightheadedness returned, more intense than before. He gripped his pencil tighter, determined to at least answer the first question. The perimeter. Length plus width times 2. 22 centimeters. He managed to write the answer, but the effort left him feeling even more lightheaded. The classroom lights suddenly seemed too bright, pulsing slightly in his vision. Noah raised his hand, thinking he should ask to go to the nurse after all, but his arm felt strangely heavy. Mrs. Peterson was helping another student and didn't notice. The pounding in his chest intensified, racing, then seeming to pause, then racing again in an irregular pattern that frightened him. "Mom," he whispered, though he knew she couldn't hear him, and then the classroom began to tilt sideways. The test, paper, his desk, his classmates, everything receded into a narrowing tunnel of vision. The last thing Noah was aware of was a strange floating sensation as the darkness closed in, and then nothing at all as he slumped forward and fell from his chair to the floor. Emily Peterson had been monitoring her students during the math test when the terrifying sound of a small body hitting the floor broke the classroom's concentration. For a split second, she froze. Then 15 years of teaching experience, combined with her previous career as a hospital nurse, kicked in. "Everyone stay in your seats," she commanded, her voice firm enough to halt the immediate surge of children from their desks. She rushed to Noah's side, mentally running through the emergency protocols that had become second nature during her 7 years in the emergency department. Kneeling beside Noah's crumpled form, Emily quickly assessed the situation. The boy was unconscious, his skin pale with a grayish tinge that sent alarm bells ringing in her mind. This wasn't a simple faint from test anxiety or skipping breakfast. "Sophia, go to the office and tell them we need the nurse immediately," she directed one of her more level-headed students. "Tell them it's an emergency." Emily gently rolled Noah onto his side into the recovery position, checking his airway and breathing. His pulse, when she found it, was erratic, sometimes racing, sometimes alarmingly slow. She had seen this presentation before, years ago in the ER. It looked cardiac in nature, which was extremely unusual in an 8-year-old child. Around her, the students had fallen into a frightened silence, watching wide-eyed as their teacher handled the crisis with calm efficiency. A few had started crying quietly. "Lucas," Emily called to Noah's best friend, whose face had drained of all color, "I need you to be very brave. Go next door to Mr. Williams' classroom and ask him to come here right away to help with the class." The boy nodded shakily and ran from the room. Emily returned her attention to Noah, whose breathing had become shallow. This was beyond the school nurse's capabilities. They needed emergency services. As if reading her thoughts, Principal Barnes appeared in the doorway, the school nurse right behind him. "What happened?" he asked, taking in the scene with appropriate concern. Noah collapsed during the test, irregular pulse, poor color. "Unresponsive," Emily reported succinctly. "We need to call 911 immediately." The nurse, Mrs. Rodriguez, hurried to join Emily beside Noah, her experienced hands confirming Emily's assessment. "Calling now," Principal Barnes said, pulling out his cell phone. "Class," Emily addressed her students, keeping her voice steady despite the adrenaline coursing through her system. "Mr. Williams is going to take you to the library while we help Noah. Please line up quietly at the door." The neighboring teacher had arrived and quickly grasped the situation. With practiced efficiency, he gathered the shaken fourth graders and led them out, leaving Emily, Mrs. Rodriguez, and Principal Barnes with the unconscious child. "His mother," Emily said suddenly. "We need to call Jessica Miller." "Already on the list," Principal Barnes assured her, speaking in low tones to the 911 dispatcher. Emily stroked Noah's hair gently as Mrs. Rodriguez continued to monitor his vital signs. "Hang in there, buddy," she whispered. "Help is coming." In the 15 minutes it took for the ambulance to arrive, Noah never regained consciousness. His pulse continued its disturbing pattern, and his breathing remained shallow. Emily found herself drawing on skills she hadn't used in years, keeping his airway clear and monitoring for any signs of improvement or deterioration. The paramedics burst into the classroom with controlled urgency. 2 men in their 30s, wheeling a stretcher and carrying equipment. "What have we got?" the lead paramedic asked, kneeling to examine Noah. 8-year-old male, collapsed approximately 20 minutes ago during class. No prior history of seizures or fainting that we're aware of. Pulse is irregular, breathing shallow. No response to verbal or tactile stimulation, Emily reported, falling easily into the clinical language of her nursing days. The paramedic gave her an appreciative glance. "You medical?" A former nurse. "Current fourth-grade teacher," she explained. "Lucky kid," he commented, as his partner attached monitoring leads to Noah's small chest. The portable EKG machine beeped to life, displaying a rhythm that confirmed Emily's suspicions. "Looks like an arrhythmia," the second paramedic noted. "Possible long QT." "That's what I was thinking," Emily agreed. "I saw a few pediatric cases when I was at Mercy General." Working quickly, the paramedics established an IV line and administered medication to stabilize Noah's heart rhythm. Within moments, they had transferred him to the stretcher, oxygen mask in place. "We're taking him to Children's Memorial," the lead paramedic informed Principal Barnes. "Has the mother been notified?" "We've called, but haven't reached her yet," the principal replied. "She works 2 jobs. We've left messages at both locations." Emily made a quick decision. "I know Noah well and I have a relationship with his mother. I'd like to accompany him to the hospital if that's allowed." The unspoken reality hung in the air. A critically ill child shouldn't be alone in an ambulance or emergency room. The paramedics exchanged glances, then nodded. "Given the circumstances, that would be helpful. We'll need you to ride up front," though Principal Barnes agreed to arrange coverage for Emily's class for the remainder of the day. "Keep us posted," he said as Emily gathered her purse. "We'll keep trying to reach Ms. Miller." The ride to Children's Memorial Hospital took 11 minutes by Emily's watch, though it felt much longer. From her seat in the front of the ambulance, she could hear the paramedics working on Noah in the back, their professional voices calling out vital signs and medication doses. The siren wailed above them, parting traffic as they sped through the city streets. At the hospital, Noah was immediately whisked into a trauma room, a team of pediatric specialists already waiting. Emily found herself standing in the hallway, suddenly unsure of her role, now that professional medical staff had taken over. "Are you his mother?" a nurse asked, clipboard in hand. "No, his teacher. I was with him when he collapsed." "His mother is on her way," Emily explained, hoping it was true. "I'm also a former nurse, so I accompanied him in the ambulance." The nurse nodded, softening slightly. "We'll need as much information as you can provide while we wait for the family to arrive." Emily followed the nurse to a small consultation room, where she provided Noah's full name, date of birth, and the details of his collapse. She mentioned his pallor that morning, recalling that he had seemed unusually subdued during the morning lessons. "Has he ever mentioned chest pain, shortness of breath, dizziness?" the doctor asked, when he joined them briefly. Emily shook her head. "Not to me. He's generally a very healthy child. Excellent student, particularly in math. Quiet, but well-liked. Any family history of heart problems that you're aware of?" "I don't know," Emily admitted. "He lives with his mother. The father isn't in the picture." The doctor made notes, then excused himself to return to Noah. Emily found herself alone in the consultation room, the gravity of the situation settling over her. In 15 years of teaching, she had dealt with countless scraped knees, allergic reactions, and childhood illnesses. But this was different. Something was seriously wrong with Noah, and Emily couldn't shake the feeling that if she hadn't recognized the signs from her nursing days, the outcome might have been much worse. The door burst open, startling Emily from her thoughts. Jessica Miller stood there, her grocery store uniform still on, her face a mask of terror. "Where's my son?" she demanded, her voice raw with fear. "They called me at work," said Noah, collapsed. "That his heart—" Her voice broke. Emily stood, guiding the distraught mother to a chair. "He's being treated by the best pediatric team in the city," she assured her. "They're running tests now to determine exactly what happened." Jessica stared at her, recognition slowly dawning. "You're his teacher, Mrs. Peterson." Emily nodded. "I was with him when it happened. I came in the ambulance." "Thank you," Jessica whispered, gripping Emily's hand with surprising strength. "Thank you for being with him. He must have been so scared." "He wasn't aware," Emily said, gently. "He lost consciousness immediately and hasn't woken up yet." A fresh wave of fear washed over Jessica's face. "Oh, God. Is he going to—" She couldn't finish the sentence. Before Emily could respond, the doctor returned. His expression was serious but not grim, which Emily recognized as a positive sign. "Ms. Miller? I'm Dr. Patel, the pediatric cardiologist on call. We need to talk about your son's condition." Jessica's world narrowed to the words coming from Dr. Patel's mouth as they sat in the small consultation room. Emily remained beside her, a steady presence as the doctor explained what was happening with Noah. The tests confirmed that Noah has a condition called long QT syndrome, Dr. Patel said, his voice gentle but direct. "It's a disorder of the heart's electrical system that causes irregular heartbeats or arrhythmias." But how?" Jessica asked, her voice barely above a whisper. "He's only 8. He's always been healthy." Long QT syndrome is usually congenital, meaning Noah was born with it, the doctor explained. It often goes undiagnosed until a cardiac event occurs, like what happened today. Jessica thought back to Noah's complaints that morning, the funny feeling in his chest, his unusual fatigue. Guilt crashed over her like a wave. "He told me he didn't feel well this morning. I thought he was just nervous about a test." Dr. Patel nodded sympathetically. "The symptoms can be subtle and easily mistaken for anxiety or other common childhood complaints. There's no way you could have known." "What happens now?" Jessica asked, trying to focus on the path forward rather than her crushing guilt. "Noah is stable. We've started him on medication to help regulate his heart rhythm, and he's regained consciousness," Dr. Patel said, offering the first piece of good news. "He's asking for you." Relief washed over Jessica. "Can I see him?" "Absolutely. He's been moved to the pediatric cardiac unit. There are some monitors and equipment that might look scary, but they're helping us keep him safe." As they prepared to leave the consultation room, Dr. Patel added something that made Jessica freeze. "I should mention, without the quick response he received at school, this could have been fatal. Long QT syndrome is one of the causes of sudden cardiac death in young people. Your son was very fortunate that his teacher recognized the seriousness of the situation immediately." Jessica turned to Emily, truly seeing her for the first time since arriving at the hospital. The 4th grade teacher looked exhausted, her usually neat ponytail coming loose, worry lines etched around her eyes. "You saved his life," Jessica said, the full weight of what had happened finally hitting her. Emily shook her head modestly. "I just recognized that it wasn't a typical fainting spell. The paramedics and doctors did the real saving." "Nevertheless," Dr. Patel interjected, "your background as a nurse and your quick action made a critical difference. Minutes matter in cardiac events." As they walked to Noah's room, Emily quietly explained what had happened in the classroom, filling in the pieces. Jessica was still struggling to understand. When they reached the door to Noah's room, Jessica hesitated, steeling herself for what she would find inside. Noah lay in a hospital bed that seemed too large for his small frame. Electrodes attached to his chest led to a monitor displaying his heart rhythm. An IV line ran into his arm, delivering medication. Despite all this, when he saw his mother, his face lit up with a weak smile. "Mom," he called, his voice small but clear. Jessica rushed to his side, carefully gathering him into a hug that avoided disturbing the medical equipment. "I'm here, baby. I'm here now." "Mrs. Peterson came with me in the ambulance," Noah told her, spotting his teacher hovering near the doorway. "I know, honey. That was very kind of her." Jessica looked over her shoulder at Emily. "Would you like to come in? I know Noah would like to thank you properly." Emily entered the room, moving, to stand at the foot of Noah's bed. "How are you feeling, buddy?" she asked, her teacher voice returning now that the immediate crisis had passed. "Tired," Noah admitted, "and my chest still feels funny sometimes, but not as bad as before." A nurse entered to check Noah's vital signs. explaining that Dr. Patel would return shortly to discuss long-term treatment plans. When they were alone again, Jessica found herself facing the practical realities of their situation. "I need to call work," she said, the thought suddenly occurring to her. "Both jobs. I don't know how long we'll be here." "Use my phone," Emily offered immediately. "And don't worry about Noah missing school. We'll work something out for his assignments." Jessica made the necessary calls, explaining the situation to her supervisors. Her grocery store manager was understanding, assuring her that her job would be waiting when she returned. The diner was less accommodating, reminding her of the 2-week notice policy for extended absences. Jessica hung up, trying to calculate how long they could manage on just one income. With hospital bills now looming, Dr. Patel returned with a pediatric cardiologist who would be overseeing Noah's ongoing care, Dr. Miranda Chen. Together, they outlined what the diagnosis meant for Noah's future. "Long QT syndrome is a lifelong condition," Dr. Chen explained. "But with proper management, Noah can lead a normal, active life. We'll start with medication to regulate his heart rhythm." "Will he need surgery?" Jessica asked, clutching Noah's hand. "Not immediately," Dr. Chen replied, "but we may consider an implantable cardioverter defibrillator, an ICD, in the future if the medication alone isn't sufficient. It's a device that monitors heart rhythm and delivers a shock if a dangerous arrhythmia occurs." Noah's eyes widened at this information. "Like Iron Man's arc reactor?" he asked, surprising the adults with his question. Dr. Chen smiled. "Not quite as sophisticated as Tony Stark's invention, but similar idea, a device that helps keep your heart working properly." The doctors continued explaining the lifestyle adjustments Noah would need to make. Avoiding certain medications that could worsen the condition, limitations on competitive sports, the importance of staying hydrated, and regular cardiac checkups. "What about school?" Jessica asked, glancing at Emily. "Is it safe for him to return?" "Absolutely," Dr. Chen assured them. "Though, we'll need to create an emergency action plan and make sure the school staff is aware of his condition. He should avoid overly strenuous physical activity, but otherwise maintaining his normal routine is important." Emily spoke up. "I'll make sure everyone at Lakeside understands Noah's needs. We can coordinate with the school nurse to store his medication and create appropriate accommodations for POB." As the doctors finished their explanation, a hospital administrator appeared with clipboard in hand. "Ms. Miller, when you have a moment, we need to go over some insurance information and admission paperwork." Jessica's stomach tightened. Their insurance was basic, with high deductibles and limited coverage. Another worry to add to the growing pile. "I'll sit with Noah while you take care of that," Emily offered, sensing Jessica's anxiety. An hour later, Jessica returned to the room, her face tight with stress. Noah had fallen asleep, and Emily was quietly grading papers she had apparently asked someone to bring from the school. "Everything okay?" Emily asked, noting Jessica's expression. Jessica sank into a chair, her voice low to avoid waking Noah. "The insurance will cover some of it, but the deductible and these specialist visits Noah will need, I don't know how we're going to manage." Emily hesitated, then spoke carefully. "There are assistance programs for families in medical crisis. The hospital social worker can help navigate those options." Jessica nodded, though the thought of applying for assistance stung her pride. She had been determined to provide for Noah on her own since his father had walked out 3 years ago. "One day at a time," Emily said gently. "The important thing is that Noah is getting the care he needs now." Jessica looked at her son's sleeping face, peaceful despite the monitors and tubes. She thought about how close she had come to losing him today, how if he had collapsed at home alone, or if his teacher hadn't recognized the seriousness of his condition. "Thank you," she said again to Emily, words wholly inadequate for the gratitude she felt. Not just for today, but for seeing him, really seeing him. Emily understood what Jessica meant. In a system where children like Noah, quiet, well-behaved, not causing problems, could easily be overlooked, Emily had noticed him, had taken his symptoms seriously, when others might have dismissed them. "He's a special kid," Emily said simply. "We're going to make sure he gets whatever he needs to thrive." 2 weeks after his collapse, Noah stood nervously at the entrance to Lakeside Elementary, his mother's hand firm in his own. He wore a medical alert bracelet on his left wrist, still new enough that he found himself fidgeting with it constantly, and carried a backpack containing not just his usual school supplies, but also his medication and a detailed medical information card. "Ready?" Jessica asked, giving his hand a gentle squeeze. Noah nodded, though his stomach fluttered with anxiety that had nothing to do with his heart condition. During his hospital stay and subsequent recovery at home, he had imagined this moment many times, walking back into Mrs. Peterson's classroom, facing his classmates after they had witnessed his dramatic collapse. Would they treat him differently? Would they think he was weird or fragile? Yesterday, Mrs. Peterson had visited their apartment, bringing a stack of missed assignments and a handmade card signed by everyone in the class. She had also explained how she had been preparing the other students for Noah's return. "I've told them about your condition in age-appropriate terms," she had assured Noah. "They understand that your heart sometimes beats in an irregular pattern, and that you take medicine to help keep the rhythm steady." "Did you tell them I might die?" Noah had asked bluntly, voicing the fear that had taken root since he'd overheard doctors discussing the mortality rates associated with untreated long QT syndrome. Mrs. Peterson's expression had been serious but calm. "I told them that you have a condition that needs careful management, but with the right care and precautions, you'll be just fine." Which is the truth, Noah. Now, as Noah walked through the school's main entrance, he tried to hold on to her reassuring words. Principal Barnes greeted them in the office, his normally stern face softened with genuine concern. "Welcome back, Noah," he said. "We've missed you around here. Mrs. Peterson has everything ready for your return." The school nurse, Mrs. Rodriguez, reviewed Noah's medication schedule and emergency protocol with Jessica one final time. A copy of Noah's emergency action plan had been placed in every classroom he would visit, and all his teachers had received basic training on recognizing signs of cardiac distress. "We've also ordered an AED for the school," Principal Barnes mentioned, referring to the automated external defibrillator that Dr. Chen had recommended. "It should arrive next week, and all staff will receive training." Jessica nodded gratefully. The school's response had been comprehensive and swift, easing at least some of her anxiety about Noah returning to normal activities. "I think we're all set," she said finally, kneeling to give Noah a hug. "Call me if you need anything, okay? Anything at all." "I will," Noah promised, though they both knew he would try his hardest not to call. His determination to appear normal had only intensified since his diagnosis. Mrs. Peterson was waiting outside her classroom when Noah arrived. "Perfect timing," she smiled. "We're just about to start morning meeting." Noah took a deep breath and followed her in. 22 pairs of eyes turned to look at him as he entered. Some kids smiled, others looked curious, a few seemed uncomfortable. Lucas, his best friend, beamed and pointed to an empty desk beside his own. "Look who's back, everyone," Mrs. Peterson announced cheerfully. "Noah has returned." There was a smattering of applause which made Noah blush. He quickly made his way to his seat, keeping his eyes down. "As we discussed last week, Noah has been recovering from a heart condition called long QT syndrome," Mrs. Peterson continued, her tone matter-of-fact rather than dramatic. "He's doing very well, and his doctors have cleared him to return to school. Remember what we talked about regarding how we can be supportive classmates. Treat him normally, but be aware of his needs," Sophia recited from the front row. "Know the warning signs in case he needs help," added another student. "Don't make him run during PE," called out a boy from the back. Mrs. Peterson nodded. "That's right. Noah is the same person he was before. He just needs some special considerations for his health, just like Marcella needs her glasses to see clearly, or how Devin uses his inhaler for asthma." Noah felt a wave of gratitude for his teachers approach framing his condition as just another form of human variation, rather than something that made him fundamentally different or damaged. The morning progressed with surprising normalcy. They reviewed multiplication tables, discussed their social studies project on local government, and even had a short science experiment on magnetism. Noah found himself relaxing incrementally as the familiar routines of school enveloped him. Dumby. Recess, however, the fragile sense of normalcy fractured. Noah had been cleared for light play, but was supposed to avoid competitive sports or strenuous activity. He and Lucas were playing a calm game of hangman on a bench when Tyler Martinez approached them. "Hey Noah, we need one more for basketball." "Want to play?" Tyler asked. Before Noah could respond, Lucas jumped in. "He can't play basketball anymore. His heart might stop." Noah winced at Lucas's blunt, if well-intentioned, statement. Tyler's eyes widened. "For real? You could just die playing basketball?" "No," Noah said quickly. "I mean, not exactly. I just need to avoid getting too excited or tired." Tyler took a step back, as if Noah's condition might be contagious. "Oh, okay, well maybe another time then." He hurried back to the basketball court where Noah overheard him telling the other boys, "Noah can't play. His heart's messed up." Lucas seemed oblivious to Noah's discomfort. "It's okay. We can keep playing hangman. Or maybe we could ask Mrs. Peterson if we can help organize the classroom library instead of staying outside." Noah felt a flare of irritation. "I'm not an invalid, Lucas. I can be outside. I just can't run around a lot." "Sorry," Lucas mumbled, looking hurt. Noah immediately regretted his sharp tone. "No, I'm sorry. I don't want everyone treating me like I'm made of glass." The rest of the day brought similar small interactions that highlighted Noah's new status as the kid with the heart problem. In the lunchroom, Sophia asked if he was allowed to eat the cafeteria pizza or if it would affect his condition. During art, the teacher hovered near him, repeatedly asking if he felt okay. By the time the final bell rang, Noah felt emotionally exhausted from navigating the well-intentioned but often uncomfortable attention. As he was packing up his backpack, he noticed Tyler whispering to another boy while glancing in his direction. When Noah made eye contact, both boys quickly looked away. The message was clear. He was now a subject of gossip, possibly even fear. "How was your first day back?" Mrs. Peterson asked, as he waited for his mother in the pickup line. "Fine," Noah said automatically, then reconsidered. Mrs. Peterson had always been honest with him. He could be honest with her. "Actually, it was kind of weird. Everyone's treating me differently." Mrs. Peterson nodded thoughtfully. "That's natural at first. It's a big change for them to understand. Give it time." "Tyler acted like he might catch my heart condition," Noah confided, "and Lucas kept trying to make me sit down and rest every 5 minutes. People fear what they don't understand," Mrs. Peterson said, "which gives me an idea. But for now, be patient with your classmates. They care about you, they just don't know exactly how to show it yet." Jessica arrived, eager to hear about Noah's day. He gave her the same "fine" he had initially offered. Mrs. Peterson, not wanting to worry her with the social complications of his return. She had enough to worry about with the medical bills that had started arriving daily and the extra shifts she was picking up to cover them. That night, as Noah lay in bed, he found himself dreading the next day of school rather than looking forward to it. Before his diagnosis, he had been just Noah, quiet, good at math, Lucas's friend. Now he was the heart kid, a label he hadn't asked for, and didn't know how to shed. He touched the medical alert bracelet on his wrist, the metal cool against his skin. This was his reality now. Medication twice daily, regular doctor visits, activity restrictions, and, apparently, being treated like a strange and somewhat fragile curiosity by his peers. "It's not fair," he whispered into the darkness of his room, allowing himself this small moment of self-pity before determinedly pushing the feeling away. Dr. Chen had told him that negative emotions like stress, fear, and anger could potentially trigger his arrhythmia. He needed to stay calm and positive. But as he drifted toward sleep, Noah couldn't help wondering if anything would ever feel normal again. Emily Peterson sat at her kitchen table late into the evening, lesson plans spread before her. But her mind focused on Noah Miller. She had watched him throughout the day, noting the careful distance his classmates maintained and the way his shoulders had progressively slumped as the hours passed. Though the children meant well, their uncertainty about how to interact with Noah was creating exactly the isolation she had hoped to avoid. An idea had been forming since their conversation after school, something that might help not just Noah, but the entire class understand chronic health conditions in a more personal way. Tapping her pen against her coffee mug, Emily began to outline a new project. The next morning, Emily arrived at school early to discuss her plan with Principal Barnes. Though initially hesitant about deviating from the approved curriculum, he warmed to the idea as she explained its educational and social benefits. It ties into our science standards on human body systems, she pointed out, and addresses the social-emotional learning benchmarks about empathy and community building. All right, he conceded. But draft a letter to parents explaining the project. Some might be concerned about discussing medical conditions in class. Emily agreed, already composing the letter in her mind as she prepared her classroom for the day. When her students arrived, she noticed Noah enter cautiously, his eyes darting around as if assessing whether yesterday's awkwardness would continue. Lucas walked beside him, talking animatedly, trying too hard to act normal, which only highlighted how abnormal the situation felt. After morning announcements, Emily called the class to the meeting area. "I have an exciting new project to announce," she began, watching as interest sparked across most faces. "For the next 2 weeks, we're going to be learning about everyday heroes." "Like firefighters and police officers?" asked Tyler. "Those are certainly heroes," Emily acknowledged. "But we're going to focus on a different kind, people who live with health challenges, but don't let those challenges define them or limit their dreams." Noah stiffened slightly, clearly wondering if this was all about him. Emily continued quickly, addressing the whole class rather than singling him out. "Each of you will research someone who has a health condition but has accomplished amazing things. You'll create a presentation about what their condition is, how they manage it, and what they've achieved." She moved to the whiteboard and began listing examples: athletes with asthma, musicians with hearing impairments, scientists with diabetes, artists with epilepsy, writers who use wheelchairs. "What about people with heart problems?" Lucas asked, glancing at Noah. "Absolutely," Emily replied. "There are Olympic athletes, rock climbers, and even astronauts with various heart conditions." Noah's expression had shifted from wariness to cautious interest. Emily knew she was walking a fine line. She wanted the project to normalize health conditions without making Noah feel like the inspiration for it, which of course he was. But she hoped the broader focus would make it educational rather than uncomfortable for him. "Can we pick any condition we want to research?" Sophia asked. "Yes, though I have a list of suggestions if you need ideas," Emily said. "What's important is learning how people adapt to challenges and thrive despite them, or sometimes because of them." As Emily distributed the project guidelines, she noticed several students glancing at Noah with new interest, not the fearful or pitying looks from yesterday, but with genuine curiosity. Perhaps they were already reconsidering their assumptions. "One more thing," Emily added. "Part of this project involves creating awareness materials about your chosen condition. We'll use these to teach younger grades about health differences and inclusion." The class spent the remainder of the morning exploring initial research resources Emily had gathered. To her relief, Noah appeared engaged, particularly when he discovered an article about a professional soccer player with long-cute syndrome who continued competing with proper medical supervision. When the lunch bell rang, Emily noticed Tyler lingering at his desk while the other students filed out. "Mrs. Peterson?" he asked hesitantly. Can I talk to you for a minute? Of course, Tyler. The boy fidgeted with his pencil. I don't think I want to do this project. May I ask why not? Emily kept her tone neutral, though she suspected she knew the reason. Tyler's words came in a rush. My cousin had leukemia when I was little, and it was really scary, and I don't want to talk about sick people because what if they die? And Emily gently interrupted his spiraling anxiety. Tyler, thank you for sharing that with me. I'm sorry about your cousin. Was that a difficult time for your family? Tyler nodded, blinking rapidly. He got better, but I remember everyone being really sad and worried all the time. It makes sense that health conditions might be a sensitive topic for you, Emily acknowledged. Would it help if you researched someone who has fully recovered from their condition? Or perhaps someone with a non-life-threatening condition? Tyler considered this. Maybe. Or could I maybe do something about, like, how families feel when someone is sick? Is that allowed? Emily felt a surge of admiration for the boy's emotional insight. That's a wonderful perspective to explore, Tyler. Yes, you absolutely can focus on the family experience. Tyler's relief was palpable. Okay, I can do that. As he left for lunch, Emily made a mental note to check in with him regularly throughout the project. His reaction was a reminder that many children had experiences with illness and medical trauma that weren't immediately visible. The afternoon brought an unexpected development when Principal Barnes appeared at the classroom door with a visitor. Dr. Chen, Noah's cardiologist. Dr. Chen was at the school for a meeting about our emergency medical protocols, Principal Barnes explained, and asked if she might observe your class for a few minutes. Emily welcomed the doctor, quickly explaining the Everyday Heroes project they had just begun. Dr. Chen's face lit up with approval. What perfect timing, she said. I was just discussing with your principal how important it is to create an informed, supportive environment for students with medical conditions. Noah, who had initially tensed at his doctor's appearance, relaxed when it became clear she wasn't there specifically to check on him or draw attention to his condition. As the students worked independently on their research, Dr. Chen circulated the room, pausing to ask thoughtful questions about their chosen topics. When she reached Noah's desk, their conversation was quiet and normal, not the heightened, concerned interactions Noah had been experiencing from adults since his diagnosis. When the final bell rang, Dr. Chen pulled Emily aside. This project is exactly the kind of educational approach we recommend for schools with chronically ill students. Would you mind if I mentioned it to other families I work with? Not at all, Emily replied, pleased by the validation. I'd be happy to share the curriculum. After the students had departed, Emily found a folded note on her desk. Opening it, she recognized Noah's neat handwriting. Dear Mrs. Peterson, thank you for not making the project just about me. But also thank you for making it. I found 3 athletes with long QT who still do cool stuff. Maybe I can too. Noah, Emily smiled, tucking the note into her planner. Day 1 of the project seemed promising, but she knew from experience that classroom dynamics could be complicated. Some parents might object to discussing medical conditions. Some children, like Tyler, might have personal reasons for finding the topic difficult. As she gathered her materials to head home, Emily received an email notification on her phone. It was from Jessica Miller, sent to both Emily and Principal Barnes. I just wanted to express my gratitude for the Everyday Heroes project Noah told me about. This is exactly what he needs right now, to see possibilities rather than limitations. If there's anything I can do to support this work, please let me know. Emily felt a wave of relief. With Noah and his mother both on board, the project had a strong foundation. Now she just needed to guide it carefully, ensuring it educated and united her students rather than further isolating Noah or anyone else with health challenges. Tomorrow would bring new developments and probably new challenges. But for now, Emily allowed herself to feel cautiously optimistic about the path forward. Tyler Martinez sat at the kitchen table, staring at his laptop screen without really seeing it. He was supposed to be researching for Mrs. Peterson's Everyday Heroes project, but his mind kept wandering back to the day Noah had collapsed in class. The memory made his stomach hurt. The sudden noise of Noah hitting the floor, the gray color of his face, the way Mrs. Peterson had checked if he was breathing. It had been like a scene from one of those medical shows his parents watched, except it was real and happening to someone Tyler knew. "How's the homework coming along?" his mother asked, placing a glass of milk and a plate of cookies beside his computer. "Okay, I guess," Tyler mumbled, taking a cookie without enthusiasm. Maria Martinez studied her son's face, recognizing the signs of anxiety she knew too well. "What's the assignment about?" Tyler explained Mrs. Peterson's project, including how he had asked to focus on families affected by illness rather than on patients themselves. "I keep thinking about when Noah fainted," he admitted. "It was really scary." Maria sat down beside him, her expression softening. "I can imagine it was." "Is that why you've been having trouble sleeping this week?" Tyler nodded reluctantly. He hadn't told his parents about the nightmares, dreams where Noah or sometimes other classmates collapsed and didn't get back up. Dreams where everyone looked to Tyler for help, but he stood frozen, unable to move or speak. "You know," Maria said carefully, "your reaction is very normal. When your cousin Daniel was sick, you were only 5, but you had nightmares then too." "I did?" Tyler couldn't clearly remember that time, just fragments. The hushed conversations between adults, the hospital smell that clung to his aunt's clothes, the way everyone had tried to act normal around him even though nothing felt normal. Yes, you were convinced that if Daniel could get sick, anyone could, including you or Dad or me. You made us promise every night that we wouldn't get sick. Tyler felt his cheeks warm with embarrassment, though he recognized the same. Fear operating now. Since Noah's collapse, he had found himself watching his classmates and even his parents for signs of hidden illness. What if someone else had an undiagnosed heart condition? What if his dad's occasional headaches were actually symptoms of something worse? "Sweetheart," his mother continued, "this project might actually be good for you. Learning about medicals, conditions, and how people manage them could help with the fear." Tyler wasn't convinced, but he nodded anyway. Maybe. Later that evening, after dinner, Tyler's father found him still struggling with his research. "Need some help, buddy?" he asked, pulling up a chair. "I don't know where to start," Tyler admitted. "Mrs. Peterson gave us a list of famous people with health conditions, but I want to know about regular families." Carlos Martinez thought for a moment. "You know, I have a colleague whose daughter has type 1 diabetes. She wears an insulin pump and everything. They do a lot of advocacy work, speaking at schools about what it's like to be a family managing a chronic condition. Would you like me to ask if they'd talk to you?" Tyler's eyes widened. "Really? Do you think they would?" "I can check. Jamie's very open about their experience. They've actually helped train teachers at his daughter's school about emergency response for diabetic episodes." That night, Tyler lay in bed thinking about his conversation with his parents. He still felt anxious about Noah and illness in general, but having a concrete plan for his project provided a small sense of control. Maybe learning more really would help with the fear. The next day at school, Tyler found himself watching Noah during morning work time. The boy seemed much the same as before his diagnosis, quietly focused, occasionally whispering with Lucas. Nothing to suggest he had a potentially dangerous heart condition. The only visible difference was the medical alert bracelet on his wrist, which Noah absently fidgeted with as he worked. When Mrs. Peterson called the class to the reading corner for their daily novel study, Tyler deliberately chose a spot near Noah, not right beside him, but close enough to satisfy his growing curiosity. As Mrs. Peterson read from Wonder, a book about a boy with a facial difference, Tyler found himself distracted by questions about Noah's condition. What exactly was long QT syndrome? How did Noah's heart work differently from everyone else's? Could it just stop at any moment? When they returned to independent work, Tyler hesitated, then approached Noah's desk. "Hey," he said awkwardly. Noah looked up, surprise evident on his face. Since his return to school, Tyler had been one of the classmates who had kept the most distance. "Hey, I was wondering," Tyler began, then paused, suddenly uncertain whether his question would be welcome. "Never mind." "What?" Noah prompted. Tyler took a breath. "For the Heroes Project, I'm focusing on families who have someone with a medical condition, and I was wondering, what does your mom do to help with your heart thing?" Noah studied Tyler's face, seemingly checking for any sign of mockery or weird curiosity. Finding none, he answered cautiously. "She makes sure I take my medicine on time, and she learned CPR just in case, and she bought a special app that connects to my medical alert bracelet." "That sounds like a lot to remember," Tyler said. Noah nodded. "Yeah, she has alarms on her phone for my medication times, and she calls the school nurse like every day to make sure everything's okay." Their conversation was interrupted by Mrs. Peterson announcing it was time for lunch, but as they lined up, Tyler found himself thinking about Noah's mother. How scary it must be to send your child to school, knowing his heart could develop a dangerous rhythm at any time. At lunch, Tyler made another unusual choice. Instead of sitting with his usual friends, he took a seat at Noah and Lucas's table. "Can I sit here?" he asked, though he had already put his tray down. Lucas looked suspicious. He had appointed himself Noah's unofficial protector since the ICE diagnosis, but Noah just shrugged. "Sure." For a few minutes, they ate in awkward silence. Then Tyler blurted out, "My cousin had leukemia when I was little." Both boys looked up in surprise. "He's okay now," Tyler added quickly, "but it was really scary for everyone." Noah seemed to consider this information carefully before responding. "Is that why you've been avoiding me? Because it reminds you of your cousin being sick?" Tyler flushed, embarrassed by Noah's directness, but also relieved by it. "I guess. And also, I didn't know what to say, or if I might accidentally do something that would make your heart thing act up." "You can't give me an arrhythmia by talking to me," Noah said, a hint of amusement in his voice. "It doesn't work that way." "Oh," Tyler said, feeling foolish. "I just thought, since excitement can trigger it, stress can be a trigger," Noah acknowledged. "But just normal conversation is fine. Actually, it's weirder when people stop talking." "To me, or treat me like I might break?" Lucas nodded emphatically. "I told you guys, he just wants to be treated normally." "It's complicated though," Noah added, surprising both boys with his thoughtfulness. "Because I do need some things to be different. Like, I can't play competitive sports anymore, and I have to take breaks during PI." Tyler nodded, thinking about what his father had said about his colleague's daughter with diabetes, how they constantly balance normalcy with necessary accommodations. "My dad knows someone whose kid has diabetes," Tyler offered. "They're going to talk to me for my project. They do a lot of advocacy work." "What's advocacy?" Lucas asked through a mouthful of sandwich. "It's like speaking up about something important." "Educating people," Tyler explained, remembering how his father had described it. Noah considered this. Maybe I could do advocacy too someday. For heart conditions, I mean." "You already are, kind of," Tyler pointed out, "just by being here and talking about it." As the lunch period ended and they headed back to class, Tyler realized something had shifted. The nameless fear that had been building since Noah's collapse had begun to recede, replaced by the beginnings of understanding. Noah wasn't defined by his heart condition any more than Tyler's cousin had been defined by leukemia. They were just kids dealing with an extra challenge. In Mrs. Peterson's classroom, Tyler raised his hand during project work time. "Mrs. Peterson, I've decided to change my topic a little. I still want to focus on families, but specifically on how kids with medical conditions and their friends can support each other." Mrs. Peterson's smile told him he had made a good choice. "That sounds like an excellent focus, Tyler. Very thoughtful." From across the room, Noah caught Tyler's eye and gave a small nod of approval. It wasn't friendship exactly, and not yet, but it was a beginning. "An AED costs how much?" Principal Barnes stared at the invoice in disbelief. Nurse Rodriguez nodded grimly. about $2,000 for a good pediatric-capable model, and that doesn't include the cabinet signage or staff training. The Kites sat in the principal's office with Emily Peterson, reviewing the medical emergency plan they had developed for Noah Miller. What had begun as protocols specific to Noah's condition had expanded into a comprehensive overhaul of the school's emergencies response systems, a change that was long overdue but now faced significant budgetary challenges. "I don't see how we can manage this with our current budget," Principal Barnes admitted. "We've already reallocated funds for the staff training and the new emergency response kits for each classroom. The school district has a capital expenditure fund for safety equipment," Nurse Rodriguez suggested. "We could apply for that." "It's been depleted for this fiscal year," the principal replied. After the security system upgrades last fall, Emily had been quiet, listening to the financial discussion with growing concern. "What happens if we don't get an AED?" she asked finally. "What are the implications for Noah?" Nurse Rodriguez straightened in her chair. Dr. Chen was very clear that an AED could be life-saving in the event of a serious arrhythmia. Without one, we'd be dependent on paramedic response time, which averages 8 to 10 minutes in our area. The unspoken reality hung in the air. In a cardiac emergency, those minutes could make the difference between life and death. "What about a fundraiser?" Emily suggested. "The PTA might be able to help," Principal Barnes sighed. "The PTA budget is already committed to the library renovation and the new playground equipment. We could ask, but it would mean delaying projects that have been planned for years." As they continued brainstorming options, Emily found herself thinking about the everyday heroes project her class was working on. Many of the historical and contemporary figures her students were researching had faced significant barriers, not just from their health conditions, but from systems that weren't designed with their needs in mind. Now, Noah was facing a similar, systemic challenge. "We need to table this for now," Principal Barnes concluded. "I'll reach out to the district office again about emergency funds, but I can't make any promises. In the meantime, let's focus on implementing the protocols we can afford." As Emily returned to her classroom, she felt a weight of responsibility that went beyond her teaching duties. Though the school was doing its best to accommodate Noah's needs, this critical piece of safety equipment remained out of reach due to budget constraints, a common but troubling reality in public education. Her students were engaged in independent work on their projects, the classroom humming with focused energy. Emily observed Noah and Tyler sitting near each other, comparing notes on something in Tyler's research binder. The sight gave her a moment of satisfaction. The project was already building bridges of understanding among her students. When the dismissal bell rang, Emily asked Noah to stay behind for a moment. "How are you feeling about everything?" she asked once they were alone. "Is there anything else we can do to make school feel more comfortable for you?" Noah considered the question thoughtfully. "I'm okay. The emergency kit in the classroom still makes some kids look at me weird, but Tyler's been better since yesterday. He actually asked me questions about my condition instead of just avoiding me." "That's progress," Emily smiled. "Understanding usually decreases fear." Noah nodded, then hesitated before adding, "My mom is still really worried, though. She keeps calling the school to check if the AED has arrived yet." Emily felt a pang of guilt. Jessica Miller had enough stress managing Noah's medical care and the accompanying financial burden without the added worry about school safety equipment. "We're working on getting one as soon as possible," Emily assured him, though she couldn't bring herself to explain the budgetary complications to an 8-year-old. After Noah left, Emily remained at her desk, mulling over the situation. In the hospital, Dr. Patel had said that without her quick response, Noah might not have survived his cardiac event. What if it happened again? But this time, there was no one with medical training nearby. The thought was unbearable. That evening, Emily found herself researching AEDs and cardiac emergency response protocols for schools. She discovered that while many states had legislation requiring AEDs in schools, implementation often lagged due to funding issues. Even when laws mandated the equipment, they rarely provided the money to purchase it. The next morning, Emily arrived at school with a nascent idea forming. During her planning period, she sought out Principal Barnes again. "I've been thinking about the AED situation," she began. "What if we approach this as an educational opportunity as well as a safety measure?" Principal Barnes looked intrigued. "Go on. My class is already learning about medical conditions and advocacy through the Everyday Heroes Project. What if we expanded that to include a student-led initiative to bring an AED to the school?" "You want the fourth graders to fundraise for medical equipment?" Principal Barnes sounded skeptical. "Not just fundraise," Emily clarified. "Educate the community about cardiac health and emergency response. They could research the statistics, create presentations about the importance of AEDs in public spaces, and yes, potentially help raise some of the funds." The principal leaned back in his chair, considering. "It's an unusual approach. Some parents might question involving children in what they'd see as an administrative responsibility." "I understand that concern," Emily acknowledged. "But think about the educational value, the real-world mathematics of budgeting and fundraising, the science of cardiac health, the civic engagement aspects, and most importantly, it gives the students agency in creating a safer environment for their classmate." "Have you discussed this with Noah or his mother?" "Not yet," Emily admitted. "I wanted to get your thoughts first. Of course, we would present it as a general safety initiative, not something specifically for Noah." Principal Barnes tapped his pen against his desk, thinking. "Draft a proposal, include the educational standards it would address, and a clear timeline. If it looks viable, we can discuss it with the appropriate parties." Emily left the office feeling cautiously optimistic. The idea needed refinement, but it had potential to transform a financial obstacle into a learning opportunity and possibly save lives in the process. In her classroom, Emily observed her students working on their projects with growing investment. Sophia was creating a poster about a Paralympic swimmer with one arm. Lucas was researching a famous scientist with epilepsy. Tyler was interviewing his father's colleague via video chat about their family's experience with diabetes. And Noah was quietly working on his presentation about a mountain climber with long QT syndrome who had scaled 6 of the world's 7 highest peaks. His face showed concentration and something else Emily hadn't seen since before his collapse. Hope. The sight strengthened Emily's resolve. These children deserved a safe learning environment, and Noah deserved the security of knowing life-saving equipment was available if needed. If the school system couldn't provide it through conventional means, perhaps it was time for an unconventional solution, one that would teach these students that they had the power to create change when systems fell short, as she circulated. Through the classroom, helping students refine their research questions and presentation plans, Emily began mentally outlining her proposal. This wouldn't be just about getting an AED for Lakeside Elementary. It would be about empowering children to advocate for health and safety in their community, a lesson that could impact them far beyond 4th grade. "Oh, how do you feel about a heart health fair?" Emily asked her class, watching their expressions carefully. She had received approval from Principal Barnes for her proposal and was now introducing the expanded project to her students. "Like with games and stuff?" Lucas asked. "Sort of," Emily explained. "It would be an educational event where you would all become teachers, sharing what you've learned about different health conditions and specifically focusing on heart health and emergency response." "Who would we be teaching?" Sophia wanted to know. "Other students, parents, community members, anyone who wants to learn," Emily said. "And here's the most important part. We'd be raising awareness about the need for an AED in our school." "What's an AED?" several students asked simultaneously. Emily had anticipated this question, an automated external defibrillator. It's a device that can help restart someone's heart if it stops beating properly. Many public places have them for emergencies, but our school doesn't have one yet. Noah's hand shot up. My doctor said an AED could save my life if my heart goes into a dangerous rhythm. A ripple of interest moved through the classroom as the students connected this abstract medical device to their classmates' very real condition. Exactly, Emily confirmed. AEDs can save lives during cardiac emergencies, but they're expensive. Our school is trying to get one, but the funds aren't available right now. Tyler, who had been listening intently, raised his hand. So we'd be raising money to buy one? That would be part of it, Emily nodded. But more importantly, we'd be educating our community about why this equipment is important and how it benefits everyone, not just people with known heart conditions. The classroom buzzed with excited conversation as Emily outlined her vision for the Heart Health Fair. Interactive stations where students would present their everyday heroes projects, demonstrations of basic emergency response techniques, heart-healthy snacks, and informational materials for families. This sounds a lot bigger than our original project, Sophia observed. It is, Emily acknowledged, which is why I'm asking if you're interested in taking this on. It would mean extra work and possibly some time outside regular school hours. I want to do it, Noah said immediately, surprising everyone with his uncharacteristic assertiveness. Not just for me, but for anyone who might need help someday. Lucas nodded vigorously, loyal as always. Me too. One by one, the other students voiced their support, some enthusiastically, others with cautious interest. Only a few seemed hesitant, including Tyler, who remained quiet during the discussion. After outlining the next steps and assigning initial research tasks, Emily dismissed the class for lunch, asking Tyler to stay behind for a moment. You didn't. Share your thoughts about the Heart Health Fair, she noted gently. Is there something about it that concerns you? Tyler fidgeted with his pencil. What if nobody comes? Or what if we can't raise enough money for the AED? My mom says they cost thousands of dollars. Emily appreciated his practical concerns. Those are very valid questions, Tyler. You're right that we might not raise all the money in one event. But even if we only raise awareness or a portion of the funds, we're still making progress. Tyler didn't look convinced. But what if Noah needs it before we can get one? The question revealed the root of Tyler's anxiety, not doubt about the project's success, but fear for his classmates' safety. Emily chose her words carefully. That's a concern we all share. But right now, the alternative is doing nothing and definitely not having an AED. By taking action, we're improving the chances of getting one sooner rather than later. Tyler considered this logic, then nodded slowly. I guess that makes sense. After school, Emily met with Jessica Miller to discuss the project. They sat in the empty classroom, Jessica looking tired after her shift at the grocery store, but attentive, as Emily explained the Heart Health Fair concept. What does Noah think about this? Jessica asked when Emily finished. He's enthusiastic, Emily reported. He was the first to volunteer, but I wanted to make sure you're comfortable with it. The focus would be on general heart health and emergency. Preparedness, not specifically on Noah's condition, but his situation would inevitably come up. Jessica was quiet for a moment, weighing the implications. Since his diagnosis, Noah has felt so powerless, she said finally. This might give him a sense of control, of doing something positive with this challenging experience. That's what I was hoping, Emily agreed, but I'm sensitive to privacy concerns. We wouldn't share any medical details without your explicit permission. Noah and I have nothing to hide, Jessica said firmly. His condition is part of who he is, not a secret. Shame. If his story helps educate others and potentially brings life-saving equipment to the school, I'm all for it. With Jessica's approval secured, Emily began organizing the logistics. The Heart Health Fair would take place in 3 weeks, giving students time to complete their research and prepare their presentations. The school gymnasium would be transformed into an interactive educational space, with stations focused on different aspects of cardiac health and emergency response. Word about the project spread quickly through the school community. Other teachers expressed interest in having their classes participate. The PTA, though unable to fund the AID directly due to prior commitments, offered to help with fair organization and publicity. Even the school district superintendent, intrigued by the student-led initiative, requested an invitation. In Emily's classroom, the Everyday Heroes project evolved and expanded as students incorporated their original research into heart health. Fair materials. Noah, growing more confident daily, worked with Lucas to create an interactive display explaining how heart rhythm disorders affect the body and what emergency responses could help. Tyler, after his initial hesitation, threw himself into the project with surprising dedication. His interview with his father's colleague had given him a new perspective on living with chronic health conditions. He now worked on a presentation about how friends and classmates could support peers with medical needs. We could make, like, a pledge card, he suggested during a planning session. People could sign it to promise they'll learn the warning signs and what to do in an emergency. That's a fantastic idea, Emily encouraged, impressed by his engagement. Visual reminders of commitment often lead to actual behavior change. As preparations intensified, Emily noticed a transformation occurring beyond the academic learning. The classroom dynamic had shifted, with Noah no longer isolated by his condition, but rather centered as a valuable contributor because of his firsthand experience. Other students who had initially kept their distance now sought his input on their projects. More surprisingly, students began sharing their own health experiences. Sophia revealed her severe allergies that required an EpiPen, Diego mentioned, his father's diabetes, and Amelia talked about her sister's asthma. What had begun as a project focused on everyday heroes with health conditions had become a conversation about how health challenges touched nearly everyone's lives in some way. One afternoon, as the students worked on their fair materials, Principal Barnes stopped by to observe. He watched for several minutes as the children collaborated. Their usual social groupings dissolved in favor of topic-based teams. "I have to admit," he said quietly to Emily, "when you first proposed this, I was skeptical. But seeing them work together like this, you've created something special here." Emily smiled, watching Noah patiently explain his heart monitor to a group of fascinated classmates. "They created it. I just opened the door." 3 months after the Heart Health Fair, Emily Peterson stood in the main hallway of Lakeside Elementary, watching as a technician mounted a gleaming white cabinet to the wall. Inside rested the promised AID, its presence the most visible legacy of her students' remarkable project. "It's really happening," Nurse Rodriguez said, joining Emily in the hallway. "Sometimes I still can't believe how this all unfolded." Emily nodded, recalling the whirlwind of events that had followed the fair. The Regional Medical Center had not only donated the AED as promised, but it also established a program to place the devices in all schools within the district over the next 2 years. Lakeside, as the inspiration for the initiative, had received the first unit. "The training session is confirmed for Thursday afternoon," Nurse Rodriguez continued. "All teachers and key staff will learn how to use it." Beyond the AID itself, the impact of the Heart Health Fair had rippled outward in unexpected ways. The local news coverage had prompted the school board to review and update emergency response protocols across the district. Other schools had reached out to Emily about replicating the Everyday Heroes project with their own students. Most remarkably, the funds raised at the fair, no longer needed for the AED, had been redirected to establish a medical emergency fund for families facing healthcare costs associated with their children's conditions. As Emily and Nurse Rodriguez discussed final details for the AED installation, Principal Barnes approached with a visitor, Superintendent Walsh, the top administrator for the entire school district. Mrs. Peterson, the superintendent, greeted her warmly. I wanted to see the AED installation myself and personally thank you for spearheading this initiative. Emily smiled but shook her head. I appreciate that, but the credit belongs to the students. They're the ones who transformed a classroom project into something that will benefit the entire community. Speaking of your students, Superintendent Walsh said, I'd like to invite your class to present at next month's school board meeting. We want to recognize their achievement and have them share their experience with board members and other educators. Emily felt a surge of pride imagining her fourth graders addressing the school board, particularly Noah, whose journey had been the catalyst for it all. They would be honored, she replied, and I think it would be a powerful learning experience for them. In her classroom, Emily found her students engaged in their current science unit on ecosystems. Though the Heart Health Fair was behind them, its influence remained evident in subtle ways. The increased collaboration among students who had previously rarely interacted, the confidence with which quieter students now expressed their ideas, and the visible integration of Noah into the social fabric of the class. Mrs. Peterson, Sophia called as Emily entered. Can we share our ecosystem projects with Mrs. Ortiz's second graders, like we did with the heart health presentations? Emily smiled at this evidence of her students' growing leadership. That's a wonderful idea. I'll talk to Mrs. Ortiz about arranging it. Throughout the morning, Emily noticed Noah frequently glancing toward the hallway where the sounds of the AED installation continued. When lunch break arrived, she gently pulled him aside. Would you like to see the AED once it's installed? She asked. Noah nodded eagerly. Can Lucas and Tyler come too? Of course, Emily agreed, touched by the friendship that had developed among the three boys. What had begun as Tyler's tentative attempts to understand Noah's condition had evolved into a genuine connection, strengthened by their shared work on the Heart Health Fair. After lunch, Emily brought the three boys to view the completed installation. The AED cabinet was prominently positioned in the main hallway, its location marked by clear signage. A small plaque beside it read, "Donated by Regional Medical Center in recognition of Lakeside Elementary's Heart Health Initiative, 2023. It's smaller than I expected, Lucas observed, studying the device through the cabinet's clear door. But it can restart a heart, Tyler added, with a note of awe in his voice. That's pretty amazing for something that size. Noah stood silently for a moment, taking in the sight. My doctor says these can save people, even if they don't have a known heart condition, he finally said. Like, someone could have an undiagnosed problem or a sudden cardiac arrest from something else. Emily nodded. That's right. This device is here for everyone, not just for students with identified heart conditions. So it might never be used for me, Noah continued thoughtfully. It might help someone else instead. That's the hope, Emily agreed. That it's here if needed, but never has to be used. As they returned to the classroom, Tyler nudged Noah's shoulder. Hey, want to come over this weekend? My mom said we could watch the new Marvel movie. Sure, Noah replied with a grin, as long as there's no popcorn with extra butter. Dr. Chen says I need to watch my saturated fat intake, Tyler rolled his eyes good-naturedly. Fine, we'll have the boring plain popcorn, but I'm still having Sour Patch Kids. Watching this casual exchange, Emily marveled at how far they had come. Just months ago, Tyler had been afraid to sit near Noah, concerned that proximity might somehow trigger a cardiac event. Now, they bantered. Like any other fourth-grade friends, Noah's medical needs acknowledged, but not defining their relationship. That afternoon, as Emily dismissed her class, Jessica Miller appeared at the classroom door. Though still dressed in her grocery store uniform, she looked less tired than Emily had grown accustomed to seeing her. Recent developments had eased some of her burdens. The medical center had connected her with a financial assistance program. That significantly reduced Noah's healthcare costs, and her supervisor had adjusted her schedule to accommodate Noah's doctor appointments. "I saw the AED in the hallway," Jessica said after the students had departed. "It's really here," Emily nodded. "Officially operational as of today." Jessica's eyes glistened. "I keep thinking about how this all started, with the most terrifying day of my life, watching them wheel my son into an ambulance, not knowing if he would." She paused, collecting herself. "And now look what's come of it. Noah has shown remarkable resilience," Emily observed, "and not just in managing his condition, but in using his experience to help others." "He's changed," Jessica agreed. "Before his diagnosis, he was so quiet, almost invisible sometimes. Now he has this purpose. Last week he told me he might want to be a cardiologist when he grows up." Emily smiled, remembering the shy boy who had barely spoken in class discussions during the first months of school. "He's found his voice. Thanks to you," Jessica said earnestly. "You could have just helped him keep up with schoolwork during his absence. Instead, you created something that transformed how he sees himself and his condition." Emily shook her head. "I just provided the framework. Noah did the real work along with his classmates." As Jessica left to collect Noah from the after-school program, Emily began preparing her classroom for the next day. Her gaze fell on the corner bookshelf, where she now kept a small collection of children's books about various medical conditions, another outcome of the Everyday Heroes project. Students from other classes occasionally borrowed these books, evidence that the conversation about health differences was continuing beyond her classroom walls. Principal Barnes appeared in her doorway. "Committee meeting still on for tomorrow?" he asked, referring to the newly formed Emergency Response Committee that Emily had been asked to chair. 3:30 in the library, she confirmed. "We'll be reviewing the training schedule and finalizing the district-wide protocols." As Principal Barnes nodded and continued down the hallway, Emily reflected on how a crisis had catalyzed institutional change. What began with one frightening moment in her classroom had expanded into comprehensive improvements in how the entire school district approached emergency preparedness. And at the center of it all was an 8-year-old boy who had transformed from victim to advocate, his medical condition becoming not just a challenge to overcome, but a platform from which to educate and inspire others. 1 year after Noah Miller collapsed in Mrs. Peterson's 4th grade classroom, Lakeside Elementary gathered for a special assembly. The gymnasium was filled with students from every grade, teachers, staff, and a significant number of parents and community members. At the center of the stage stood a now 9-year-old Noah, looking both nervous and proud as he prepared to address the crowd. "Hi everyone," he began, his voice initially soft before gaining strength. "My name is Noah Miller, and last year my heart decided to cause some trouble during a math test." A gentle ripple of laughter moved through the audience, appreciating his light-hearted approach to what had been a life-threatening event. "I have a condition called long QT syndrome," Noah continued, the medical terminology now flowing easily from him after a year of living with his diagnosis. "It means my heart's electrical system works differently, and sometimes it can cause dangerous rhythms." That's what happened that day in Mrs. Peterson's class. From her seat in the front row, Emily watched her former student with a mixture of pride and amazement. The boy who had once been reluctant to speak up in class discussions was now confidently addressing the entire school. Beside her, Jessica Miller dabbed at her eyes, overwhelmed by her son's transformation. "Today we're celebrating Heart Health Awareness Day," Noah explained. "It's been exactly 1 year since the AED was installed in our school, and since then, 5 more schools in our district pit have gotten them too." He gestured to the side of the stage where Principal Barnes stood with Superintendent Walsh and Richardy. Calloway from the Regional Medical Center. All 3 men nodded in acknowledgement. "But the really cool thing," Noah continued, "is that our school's emergency plan has already helped someone else." At this cue, Mr. Williams, the 5th grade teacher, joined Noah on stage. A tall man with a runner's build, he appeared the picture of health, giving no indication that just 2 months earlier he had collapsed during a staff meeting from a sudden cardiac arrest. "I never knew I had a heart condition," Mr. Williams told the audience, his normally booming voice subdued by emotion. "I was 38 years old, exercised regularly, and had no family history of heart problems. But sometimes these things happen without warning." He placed a hand on Noah's shoulder. "Because of the protocols established after Noah's experience, our staff knew exactly what to do. Nurse Rodriguez started CPR immediately, and Principals Barnes used the AED within 3 minutes of my collapse. According to my doctors, that rapid response is why I'm standing here today." A hush fell over the gymnasium as the reality of his words sank in. This wasn't a hypothetical scenario or a practice drill. The systems put in place following Noah's collapse had actually saved a life. "So today," Noah resumed, "we're not just remembering what happened to me. We're celebrating that our school was prepared when Mr. Williams needed help, and we're making sure everyone knows what to do in a cardiac emergency." He outlined the day's activities, age-appropriate CPR demonstrations for each grade level, a refresher on recognizing emergency, warning signs, and the introduction of a new district-wide smartphone app that would alert trained responders to cardiac emergencies in any school building. As the assembly concluded and students moved to their designated activities, Emily felt a tap on her shoulder. She turned to find Tyler Martinez and his parents. "Mrs. Peterson," Tyler's father greeted her warmly. "We wanted to share some news with you before it's announced more widely. Partially inspired by Lakeside's initiative, my company has decided to donate aids to all the public recreation centers in the city." Emily's eyes widened. "That's incredible. How many locations?" 14, he replied. "And we're providing training programs as well." Tyler's presentation at the school board meeting really drove home the importance of accessibility. Tyler beamed at this acknowledgement of his contribution. No longer the anxious boy who had feared Noah's condition, he had become an eloquent advocate for emergency preparedness, even accompanying Noah to speaking engagements at other schools. "There's more," Tyler added excitedly. "Tell her about the app, Dad." Mr. Martinez smiled at his son's enthusiasm. "The emergency response app Noah mentioned, my company's tech team developed it pro bono. It will alert trained staff members to the location of an emergency and the nearest AED. We're rolling it out district-wide next month, and if it's successful, we hope to expand it to other districts." As they discussed the technical details of the app, Emily noticed Noah across the gym, demonstrating the recovery position to a group of second graders with Lucas's assistance. Nearby, Sophia was helping the school nurse explain how the AED worked. Using a training model, Jessica joined Emily as the Martinez family moved on to the next activity station. "I never could have imagined this outcome when Noah was diagnosed," she said, watching her son confidently lead the younger children. "I was so focused on what he was losing, sports, normal activities, carefree childhood, I couldn't see what he might gain." "Perspective is everything," Emily agreed. "Noah found purpose in his experience, which is perhaps the most powerful response to adversity." "He's not the only one who's changed," Jessica added. "Look at Tyler, from avoiding Noah to becoming his closest friend and fellow advocate. And Lucas has grown too, learning to support without overprotecting." Emily nodded, observing the interactions around the gymnasium. What had begun as one teacher's attempt to help a student reintegrate after a medical crisis had evolved into a community-wide shift in awareness and preparedness. Principal Barnes approached with a visitor, Dr. Chen, who had become a regular presence at Lakeside's health initiatives. "Our cardiac response protocol is being adopted by the entire district," he informed them proudly. "Superintendent Walsh is presenting it at the State Education Conference next month. It's a model program." Dr. Chen agreed. "I've shared it with colleagues at other hospitals who are working with their local schools to implement similar systems." As the morning progressed, Emily circulated through the activity stations, watching her current fourth-grade students interact with the demonstrations. They had heard about last year's class and their groundbreaking project, but today they were witnessing its lasting impact firsthand. During lunch, a special ceremony was held to unveil a new plaque beside the AED cabinet. It read, "In recognition of Lakeside Elementary's commitment to heart health and emergency preparedness. May this equipment always be ready but never needed." As Noah and Mr. Williams jointly pulled the covering from the plaque, applause filled the hallway. Emily caught Noah's eye, giving him a subtle thumbs up. His answering smile was confident and serene, the expression of a child who had faced a life-altering diagnosis and found not only a way to cope, but a way to thrive. Later, as the day's events concluded, Emily found herself alone in her classroom, reflecting on the journey of the past year. On her desk sat a framed photograph from the Heart Health Fair. Her fourth grade class gathered around their project displays, their faces alight with pride and purpose. Beside it was a more recent addition, an article from the Education Journal that had featured Lakeside's emergency response program as a case study in student-led institutional change. A knock at her door interrupted her thoughts. Noah stood there, still buzzing with energy from the day's events. "Mrs. Peterson, Mom said to tell you we're having a small celebration dinner at our apartment tonight. Could you come?" "I'd be honored," Emily replied. "Great," Noah grinned. "Tyler and Lucas will be there too. And guess what? Dr. Chen says I might be able to try swimming lessons this summer. Not competitive swimming, just regular lessons. Isn't that awesome?" As Noah rattled on about his expanding list of approved activities, Emily marveled at the resilience of children, their ability to adapt to new realities and find joy within adjusted boundaries. What had begun as a frightening medical emergency had transformed not just one child's life, but an entire community's approach to health and safety. "You know what today made me think about?" Noah asked suddenly, his expression turning thoughtful. "What's that?" Emily prompted. "How one person having a problem can end up helping lots of other people, if they're willing to share their story." He fidgeted with his medical alert bracelet, no longer a strange new accessory, but simply a part of who he was. Like, if I hadn't fainted that day, Mr. Williams might not be alive. The profound simplicity of his observation left Emily momentarily speechless. "That's very insightful, Noah," she finally said. "Sometimes our biggest challenges can lead to our most important contributions." Noah nodded, satisfied with this affirmation. "See you tonight, Mrs. Peterson," he called as he hurried off to join his waiting friends. Watching him go, Emily thought about the frightened boy she had monitored in the ambulance a year ago and the confident young advocate he had become. Some might call it a silver lining or making the best of a bad situation, but it was more than that. It was transformation, the kind that ripples outward, touching lives far beyond its origin point. In the quiet of her classroom, surrounded by evidence of positive change that had emerged from a moment of crisis, Emily Peterson whispered a truth she had always believed, but now had witnessed firsthand. Teaching is never just about academics. It's about helping children discover how their unique experiences, even the difficult ones, can best